Hi there, Stampers. It's Jennifer McGuire. I'm glad you're here today. I'm always looking for new ways to use my layering stamp sets. These are stamp sets where you stamp things on top of each other to create something realistic or something that looks dimensional. Well, today I'm going to show you how to do stamp layering with a pearlized or metallic look, and it's one of those wow techniques that I really think you'll like. For today's technique, I'm using a new all-to-new stamp set called Garden Treasures, and it is such a beauty. There are many images here you can layer on top of each other, but there are also outline images that you can use as part of the layering or by themselves, so you can just do basic coloring if you want to. I like sets like this that offer you lots of options. I happen to not be using the outline today, but I did want to show it to you because it really is nice to have. I'm just going to be using those 3 layering images for the flowers and the 3 layering images for the leaves. For this technique, I'm also using Perfect Pearls. This is a pigment powder that's great for creating a metallic or pearlized look. Now it's available in a bunch of different colors, but I'm using the basic Perfect Pearl color today. It's nice white metallic. I also am using some dark color cardstock. This works best, I think, with dark color cardstock, but you really could use anything. Now I'm starting with the most solid image first, and I'm going to stamp that directly onto the cardstock with Versamark ink. This is a watermark ink that'll make the paper darker where you stamp it, but it's also an embossing ink, so it'll stay wet for a bit so you can put something on it, such as embossing powder. Well, today we're using pigment powder instead. So this sticky ink will hold on to the pigment powder we put on top. So here is the Perfect Pearl pigment powder. Pigment powders are just a great product for techniques. This happens to be one of my favorites. It's very, very fine, so I like to work with it over a coffee filter. That helps to contain the mess and also allows me to funnel everything back in the bottle. You really don't use much for this technique, so you don't have to worry about that, but it's nice to kind of use as little as possible. I just apply it on lightly with a brush. You can see it sticks right to that sticky ink. And once you've covered your whole image with the Perfect Pearl, you just want to brush away the excess. I'm just going back and forth very quickly and knocking all of that extra powder off. If there is any powder remaining, you can wipe it away with a cloth, but at this point you don't want to wipe firmly across that image because it will remove too much of it. So I just use a dry cloth just to wipe off any excess very gently. So now this is where the magic happens with this technique. We're going to stamp the next layer on top and get a really cool effect. This is one of the best techniques with Perfect Pearls, and I never tried it with stamp layering until today, and it worked out great. So now we can stamp off some of the Perfect Pearls. So I'm taking the next image of the layering, the second one. I'm inking it up with Versamark ink again, and I'm stamping this directly on top of that Perfect Pearl image. The nice thing about this stamp is that it's very easy to line up. You just kind of line up the little nooks, those little corners of the flower, and it lines up easily. And then when I remove it, I'm actually removing the Perfect Pearl with that image. So you can see now the Perfect Pearls are on my stamp, and you get that really cool looking result on your cardstock. Don't worry, this Perfect Pearl comes off of your stamp. You just want to scrub off firmly with a wet cloth or with a baby wipe, and you can see my stamp is perfectly clean. Now for the third and final layer, you could skip this if you wanted to, but I'm stamping it with all-to-new Dusk ink. It matches my cardstock, and it just makes a darker image there in the center. You could also use a gray ink for that or skip it altogether. This set is great because it gives such detail, but is easy to line up. Now I'm using a dry paper towel to rub away any of the excess powder around the image, and we end up with a nice shiny image. Now I'm not going to touch this just yet because we need to make it stick, and I'll show you that in a moment. But first I need to stamp my leaves. So I'm going to do the same thing again so you can see it in action again. I love the magic of this. I'm stamping the solid image first with Versamark ink onto the cardstock, and because this is a watermark ink, you will see that the cardstock gets darker wherever we've stamped it. I'm actually going to do 2 leaves here. Now it's time to add some more of the Perfect Pearls. Remember, there are colors of Perfect Pearls out there. There's like greens and blues, so you could do like a colored flower and a green leaf, but I wanted to stick with one to show you that you don't need many. And thankfully, the Perfect Pearl product is very inexpensive and it lasts you a long time. Okay, so now that I have the first layer done with the perfect pearls, this is the second layer of the leaf image. I'm going to stamp it right on top with Versamark ink, and I remove some of that powder from my cardstock. Clean the stamp, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other leaf. And check out that gorgeous dimension you get. So this image ends up looking metallic or pearlized. It's just beautiful. Nice and smooth too. For the third layer of the leaf, I'm stamping again with a dark blue ink. This is the Altenew Dusk. And there we have our final image. The shine on this is just beautiful. Now, people are going to wonder about the perfect pearls rubbing off. Now, pigment powders will rub off, but the nice thing about perfect pearls is it has a built-in binder that when it hits moisture, it'll stay put. So what I do is I mist some water in the air and kind of wave my paper through it. I just want a light mist, not big drops, a light mist, and then I heat set it. And I do that a few times, and I find that that's just enough to bind that perfect pearl to the paper. Here I'm going to take my finger, make sure it's clean, and I'm going to rub that onto the perfect pearl, and you'll see nothing is coming off. Now, I wouldn't press this really, really firmly. I might mess it up a little bit, but I found that this goes through the mail, and I've never had any problems with it rubbing off. That's the nice thing about the perfect pearls is it does have that built-in binder. If you want to be sure, you could always spray it with a fixative, but I've never found a need to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull this into a card design. I'm going to start by creating 2 sentiment strips that just are there as accents. I'm using some small Altenew stamps for this, and I'll show you the stamp set in a moment. One of the strips will repeatedly say, "You are a blessing." The other one will repeatedly say, "Sending hugs." This is a great way to use your stamp sets more. Look at those little sentiments and include them in different cards. Now for the main sentiment, I'm going to use "You are beautiful," and I got the beautiful from this Altenew stamp set. It's another of the new release. Now this one creates a beautiful layered flower also, but I decided only to use this sentiment from it. Now the other little sentiments that I used are from this other new Altenew stamp set called Extra Special. It has some beautiful layered images on it also, but check out all those little sentiments on there that can be used as supporting sentiments on your cards. Okay, so now I have my sentiment strips, and I have the beautiful image and the words "You are" to stamp right above beautiful. So I'm stamping beautiful with Versamark ink. Then I'll stamp "You are" with Versamark ink also, and I'll white heat emboss both of those so that they'll stand out nicely and be in focus underneath our flower. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention this before. If you are worried about your perfect pearls coming off, you can go ahead and add clear embossing powder over the image before you heat set it or mist it with water. That will kind of trap the perfect pearls underneath, but it does kind of mute some of the shine, so I don't usually do that. Okay, so back to the card that I'm doing here. I did glue a piece of white craft foam that has a little dimension to it to the back of our stamped panel so that it would be raised up from the card but would go through the mail nicely. Now this is what I originally planned to do. I wanted to use some of this pearlized vellum to kind of give the background a pearlized look. So you'll see me adding this onto the background, but I ended up tearing this off in a little bit because I changed my mind. I decided I didn't need that pearlized vellum and that I could save it for a different card. I decided to keep this in the video to show you that if you put something together and you're unsure if you like it, if you're careful, you can oftentimes remove it and go back to your original plan. Okay, so here I'm gluing this down with that pearlized vellum. Just going to go with this for now. I also have my stamped sentiment strips. I have put a piece of double-sided tape on the back of it, and I'm going to add this onto the card using the grid marks on my work surface to help me make sure that I get them down straight. I'm also adding a tiny little strip of dimensional craft tape below the end of that strip so it pops up nicely since the blue piece is popped up also. And now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with the second strip. Then I'm going to go ahead and cut off all the pieces that are hanging off the edge. It's easier to do that if you flip the card backwards. And there we have the card. And at this point, I don't know why I didn't like that pearlized vellum. I felt it was kind of washed out looking, and I decided to save it for another project. So I'm just carefully kind of pulling everything apart. I did use strong double-sided tape, so you'll see that my note card tears. That's okay. I'm going to cover it back up. I put new fresh tape on the back of my stamped panel, and I'm adding that directly to the white card instead, and I'm going to save that vellum piece for another card. So sometimes I tear things up to change them. I just usually edit that out of the videos so that I don't waste your time, but I wanted you to know that sometimes that's just par for the course when you're creating. I did decide to add some little pearl accents to kind of go with the pearl look of the Perfect Pearl flower. These are Tonic Nouveau drops in the just basic pearl color, and they're perfect little accents. You just put tiny little dots and they'll dry nicely and perfectly round. I also decided to stamp the "You Are a Blessing" sentiment that I did on the strip, also on the flap of this metallic envelope, just to tie everything together. I've gotten in the habit of doing this, and it's nice because when I go to mail it, my envelope will perfectly match the card. Now, I've also gotten in the habit of creating more than one card at a time, and so I wanted to show you the second card that I created. I used the same techniques, the same floral images, just did a different card design, and I changed up the sentiment to say "Thank you for your kindness." The "Thank you for your kindness" is from this Alta New stamp set that's also newer. This would be a great layering flower for this technique, but I just used the "Thank you for your kindness" sentiment. Now, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't sure about those sentiment strips on this card design. I tried to do something different, but I do think it's fun to use those sentiments as an accent for your card, not just for the focal point of your card. So I hope you give these techniques a try, especially that Perfect Pearl for stamp layering. That pearlized layered look really is fun, and the technique is so wow as you're doing it. You can find these supplies in my YouTube description below. I link to a few different sources, but be sure to go to my blog because I'll have more information and more photos. In the middle are some other videos that are related that might inspire you. If you haven't done so, hit that subscribe button so you can come back again, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.